Hi guys and welcome to the ultimate Everest Base Camp Trek information guide. I don't know how many of you already know this but मैं पिछले साल Everest Base Camp ट्रैक करने गई थी in the month of May. उसकी वीडियो सीरीज़ बहुत ही जल्द हमारे चैनल पे आने वाली है. In case it is already live and you're bumping into this video much later, I would have linked it in the description box. और अगर अभी तक नहीं publish हुई तो of course in future I will link it in this video as well. But before I get started, I want to tell you what all is this video going to contain so that अगर आपको कोई particular information चाहिए, you can jump to the timestamp which is going to be mentioned in the description box below. So to get started, मैं इस वीडियो में बात करने वाली हूँ 4 चीज़ों के बारे में. The first thing is going to be the budget of this trip because Everest Base Camp is a very expensive trek. The second thing is going to be what to pack because packing properly for a longer trek is very important. So you should also know what to pack for your trek. The third thing that I'm going to talk about is the itinerary of the trek. ये ट्रैक काफ़ी लंबी होती है and it's going to be almost 10 to 15 days and you have to have that kind of time on your hands to be able to complete the trek. So obviously you can follow the itinerary that I followed and it's going to be super easy for you in case you're planning it for yourself or going with another company. The fourth thing that I'm going to talk about is all the things that you need to know and also the frequently asked questions. So to start off with the tentative budget of this trip. पर पहले मुझे ये explain करने दो कि under what circumstances did I opt in for the trip. तो हुआ ये कि मेरी मौसी और उनकी फैमिली इस ट्रैक पे जा रहे थे अपने कुछ फैमिली फ्रेंड्स के साथ एंड मेरी मौसी यूएस से आ रही थी नेपाल ये ट्रैक करने के लिए और उन्होंने मुझे ऑफर किया कि तुम भी ये ट्रैक क्यों नहीं ज्वाइन करती बिकॉज यू आर एनी वे इन टू ट्रैवल ब्लॉगिंग एंड आई थिंक दिस विल मेक फॉर अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग ट्रैवल सीरीज़ एंड आई वॉज इन कम्प्लीट अग्रीमेंट. मुझे वैसे भी हाइकिंग करना पसंद है सो एवरेस्ट बेस कैम्प ट्रैक तो डेफिनेटली मेरे बकेट लिस्ट में थी ही. सो अगर ये अपॉर्चुनिटी मुझे मिल रही थी मुझे इसे छोड़ना नहीं था. बट उन लोगों ने ऑलरेडी इस पूरे ट्रैक की प्लानिंग प्रेपरेशन एक कंपनी के साथ कर ली थी जिसका नाम था टालिस्कर एक्सपीडिशंस. नाउ व्हेन यू आर ऑप्टिंग इन फॉर दिस ट्रैक विद अ कंपनी इट्स डेफिनेटली गोइंग टू बी ऑन अ मोर एक्सपेंसिव साइड क्योंकि उसमें थोड़ा बहुत कट कंपनी का भी होगा. सो मेरे लिए द ट्रैक कॉस्ट वॉज 1 लाख रुपीज़ एंड ऊपर से अगर आपको काठमांडू से लुकला के लिए एक जगह होती है आगे आइटनरी में मैं एक्सप्लेन करूँगी. काठमांडू से आपको लुकला के लिए फ़्लाइट्स लेनी होती हैं एंड यू कांट गो देयर बाय रोड और बाय ट्रैकिंग बिकॉज दैट एड्स ऑन टू द नंबर ऑफ डेज ऑफ योर ट्रैक. ऑल एटलीस्ट 3 डेज़ लगते हैं वहाँ पे बाय रोड भी पहुँचने में क्योंकि उसके बीच में एक हाइक भी आती है. वहाँ तक पूरी एंड डेस्टिनेशन तक मोटोरेबल रोड्स नहीं हैं. सो आपको काठमांडू से लुकला के लिए फ़्लाइट्स लेनी होती हैं एंड उसका कॉस्ट इज़ अनदर एडिशनल 20,000 रुपीज़ विच वॉज चार्ज टू मी जब मैं काठमांडू पहुंची. बट अगर आपको किसी कंपनी के साथ नहीं जाना है एंड यू वांट टू गो बाय योरसेल्फ आप थोड़ा बहुत अपना बजट लो कर सकते हैं. बट इफ़ आई एम बीइंग ऑनेस्ट क्योंकि एक हाई ऑल्टीट्यूड ट्रैक है एंड कम से कम 10 से 15 दिन आपके जाते हैं इस ट्रैक में तो खाना पानी ट्रैक का इक्विपमेंट और अगर आप पोर्टर लेते हैं गाइड लेते हैं इन सबको मिलाकर आपका बजट कम से कम 60 to 80,000 तो बन ही जाएगा. तो अगर आप किसी कंपनी के साथ जाते हैं आपको एक्स्ट्रा तो पे करना ही पड़ेगा बट देन ऑल्सो आपको ट्रैक की प्लानिंग नहीं करनी पड़ती है. अगर इफ़ आई एम बीइंग ऑनेस्ट आई थिंक इफ़ आई गो अगेन या फिर इफ़ आई रेकमेंड इट टू समबडी मैं डेफिनेटली लोगों को बोलूँगी कि अगर आप कोशिश कर सकते हैं तो खुद से प्लान करिए क्योंकि उसमें आपको बहुत मज़ा भी आएगा पूरी प्लानिंग करने में आइटनरी बनाने में. आइटनरी तो चलो बेसिक ही है सारी जगहें मोस्टली बट आइटनरी बनाने में बजटिंग करने में आपको खुद से काफ़ी मज़ा आने वाला है. बट टू गिव यू अ लिटिल एग्जाम्पल वहाँ पे हर चीज़ का कॉस्ट है. आप चाहे किसी भी लॉज में रुके या फिर कहीं पे भी खाना खाएं आपको वहाँ का कॉस्ट यूनिफॉर्म ही मिलेगा हर डिफरेंट ऑल्टीट्यूड पे. एंड जैसे जैसे ऑल्टीट्यूड बढ़ता जाएगा वैसे वैसे चीज़ों के दाम भी बढ़ते जाएंगे वेदर इट्स फूड वेदर इट्स वाटर वेदर इट्स लॉजिंग. हर कंफर्ट वाली चीज़ को जैसे इवन चार्जिंग योर फोन्स और चार्जिंग योर कैमरा के लिए एक एडिशनल कॉस्ट देना पड़ता है. सो इंक्रीमेंटल कॉस्ट तो है ही है. ऊपर से आप किसी भी लॉज में रुके चाहे रहने की जगहों का कॉस्ट हर जगह पे 500 से 1000 NPR के बीच में शायद होगा लेकिन हर जगह आपको उसी सेम लॉज में खाना भी खाना होता है एंड दैट इज़ कंपल्सरी. सो उसका खाने का कॉस्ट भी ऐड हो जाता है आपके कॉस्ट में. खाने और रहने के साथ साथ आपको एक परमिट भी लेना होता है काठमांडू से ट्रैकिंग का एंड उसके साथ साथ आपको सागरमाथा नेशनल पार्क का एक एंट्री फ़ी भी देनी होती है विच इज़ ऑल्सो एन एडेड कॉस्ट टू योर ट्रैक फ़ी. एंड प्लस इवन बिफोर यू गेट ऑन द ट्रैक आपको इक्विपमेंट पे भी काफ़ी कुछ इन्वेस्ट करना पड़ेगा क्योंकि आपके पास बेसिक हाइकिंग गियर बेसिक बैकपैक्स ट्रैकिंग पोल्स ये सब तो होने ही चाहिए जिसके बारे में मैं बात करने वाली हूँ इस वीडियो के सेकेंड पार्ट में विच इज़ व्हाट ऑल शुड यू कैरी with you. So to start off with what to pack, मैंने यहाँ पे एक बहुत ही exhaustive list बनाई हुई है, and I also have some of the things here with me to show it to you कि आपके पास exactly क्या क्या होना चाहिए. ये बहुत ही basic list है, ये चीज़ें तो आपके पास होनी ही होनी चाहिए. Over and above अगर आपको और भी कुछ अपने लिए रखना है अपनी personal necessity के लिए तो आप रख सकते हैं. मैं जिस ट्रैवल कंपनी के साथ ट्रैवल कर रही थी उन्होंने हमारे लिए एक डे बैग, हमें 2 बैग्स रखने के लिए बोला था, एक डे बैग और एक डफल बैग. सो डे बैग में वो सारी चीज़ें थी जो हम लोग दिन में कैरी कर रहे थे, और डफल बैग उन्होंने हमें एक एडिशनली प्रोवाइड किया था एज पार्ट ऑफ द ट्रैकिंग अरेंजमेंट्स. और उस डफल बैग में हम लोग वो सारी चीज़ें रख सकते थे जो हमें नहीं चाहिए थी ट्रैक करते हुए, जैसे कि गर्म कपड़े, सॉक्स या फिर फ्लीस जैकेट हो गई. और डफल बैग का जो वेट लिमिट होता है वो 12 किलोग्राम होता है, एंड दैट इज़ अकॉर्डिंग टू द पोर्टर्स एंड अकॉर्डिंग टू द फ्लाइट्स दैट यू आर गोइंग टू बी टेकिंग. इसलिए आपको वेट भी थोड़ा सा मैनेज करके चलना होता है. बट 12 kgs आई थिंक ट्रैक पे कैरी करने के लिए इज़ इनफ वेट, सो यू डोंट हैव टू वरी अबाउट दैट. To start off with the list that I have made over here, the first thing that you need is a sleeping bag. The sleeping bag that you purchase, you have to make sure that it's certified for at least -8 degrees Celsius. Otherwise, आपकी कुल्फी जम जाएगी और आप ठंडे conditions में नहीं survive कर सकते. So at least -8 degrees Celsius, it should be able to sustain in. The next very important aspect of a trek is that you should have some sturdy trekking shoes on you. And without these shoes, trekking is going to be a very miserable experience. So please make sure that you have good trekking shoes. I've been using these trekking shoes for over, I think, 6 years now. I'm not kidding. I bought these 6 years back. और अब इनकी after Everest Base Camp trek ये इनकी shoes की validity ख़त्म हो चुकी है. I have to purchase new trekking shoes. Besides trekking shoes, I think you should also keep running shoes on you for your normal day to day. जब आप lodge में किसी भी point पे trek के बीच में रुकते हैं तो वहाँ पे आपके पास normal running shoes भी होने चाहिए, because these get very heavy and also sweaty from the inside. So to give your feet some rest, you can also have normal running shoes on you, and you should also keep slippers on you so that you can go to the bathroom or you can walk around while you're not trekking. Besides that, you should have at least one pair of a fleece jacket. अगर आपको बहुत ठंड लगती है, you can even have 2 of these, but this is a basic fleece jacket which I got from Decathlon. What I'll do is I'll try and link as many of these products in the description box below which I find online. If I don't find them online, I'll try and link products which are similar to these products. And of course, you also need a full down jacket. ये down jacket मैं अपनी बहुत सारी videos में पहन चुकी हूँ, so you may have seen this on me before, but this is my favorite down jacket which again I've been using for a lot of time, almost 4 years I guess. And additionally, to feel warm, please also carry thermals with you, and enough pairs of thermals, both top and bottom, to last you for the entire duration of the trek. So maybe at least 3 pairs or 4 pairs should be a good number of thermals that you carry with you. On some days of this trek, it may also rain, so you can have something like this on you, which is a rain jacket. And if not a rain jacket, you can also go for a cheaper alternative, which is a poncho. So a poncho can be wrapped all around you and also over your head. It's going to have a hood along with it, so kind of looks like the invisibility cloak from Harry Potter. But you should have a poncho on you if you're going for any trek, not just Everest Base Camp trek. Among some of the clothing items that you need, you should have at least 5 to 6, those full sleeves dry fit t-shirts. Dry fit because you're going to be sweaty, of course, even if it's cold. So those dry fit t-shirts are going to be very useful because they'll dry easily. And even though the first few days of the trek are going to be sunny, you should still have full sleeve t-shirts so that you don't burn from the sun easily. On higher altitudes, it's very easy to burn, which is why even when you go for these trekking pants, go for full trekking pants. And if you feel too hot, some trekking pants have this option that you can convert them into shorts, like these trekking pants that I have on me. इसमें एक zipper है, and उस zipper को खोलने के बाद ये shorts बन जाती हैं. But have these light trekking pants on you so that they're not very heavy, and also the material is sort of waterproof. I got these pants from Nepal only, and from a trekking company called Sonam. And please don't forget to take a woolen cap and these waterproof gloves with you. Besides these waterproof gloves, waterproof and warm gloves, I always carry extra woolen gloves also to wear underneath these gloves because I feel extra cold. So something like this is going to be very helpful, and waterproof gloves are absolutely a must. And among the other few things that you should have on you is clean socks for all days of the trek. So even if you're going to be trekking for 10 days, please carry 10 clean pair of socks at least, and at least 3 to 4 pair of woolen socks, so that you don't freeze. And it goes without saying, nobody is going to say it aloud for you, please have clean pair of undergarments for yourself on all days of the trek. That is extremely important because you don't want to be freezing while washing them in between the trek. After this, we come to a few accessories which are also very important. One is a buff. It's like a mouth covering so that the dust from the trek or the sun does not bother you too much. You should also have a sun hat on you, a full brim sun hat, so that your neck and your face, everything is protected from the sun. And one of the other very underrated accessories but very important for a trek is a headlamp. So a headlamp is going to fit around your head, and in case it's night time or if you're going for a nighttime trek, it's going to be very useful. These are some of the important other accessories. One is a trekking pole. 2 of these is always a good idea. The more you gain altitude, the more you'll realize that you need these trekking poles. And something like this is a must-have. Believe me, some of the people in my group did not have a camelback hydration system. So this basically goes in your day bag, and you can drink water while trekking with this nozzle over here. And it's a very useful item to have, because every day of this trek you have to drink at least 1 to 2 liters, 2 liters of water minimum, and the more the merrier, honestly, because you're going to be climbing and gaining altitude. If you want to drink clean water, you can also keep a life straw filter bottle with you, but honestly the maximum capacity of this bottle is too less, and ये bottles ज़्यादा capacity में आती नहीं है, which is kind of a drawback. But ideally you should have a 1 liter bottle on you, which is a bigger bottle. I know this adds to the weight, but having a lot of water on you is going to be very important during the trek. You know, some of you may not think too much of these products, but having a good moisturizer, good facial moisturizer, body lotion, sunscreen and lip balm are going to be extremely important on the trek, because your skin is going to dry off really fast, because the sun is very extreme and the moisture levels in the environment are going to be low. So your skin is going to dry off really fast and start crackling. Your lips are going to get uncomfortable, so you need to have these things on you. And last but not the least, in your day packs and also in a surplus quantity in your other duffel bag, you should have a lot of these bars and energy bars and protein bars, so that you get energy during the trek, because you're going to start feeling very hungry. So ये bars जो होंगी आपको full रखेंगी, and you'll also want to munch on something while trekking. So a couple of these in your day bag and keep them in excess in your other duffel bag. The ones that I'm showing in this video are from MyProtein, and these are not bars. This is actually a lean brownie. ये दोनों lean brownies हैं, and this over here is a protein flapjack. I love this product because it has 20 grams of protein in this one single product, and it's also very delicious. And lean brownie on the other hand over here is also extremely delicious and has 14 grams of protein. So you can consider buying these in case you're going for any trek. But because MyProtein also has this huge sale on 15th of August, I would like to recommend some products to you which you should absolutely get your hands on. I've been working with MyProtein very closely over the last couple months, and if you follow me on Instagram, I keep recommending these products very liberally because I absolutely love these products. So one of these other products is the Clear Whey Isolate. I tried this lately, and believe me, my mind was blown. Do you know those drinks जो powder form में होती हैं, and once you mix them into water they taste really good? So this is also similar, but it's a protein product. One serving of this is going to be equivalent to 20 grams of protein, but unlike most shakes, ये heavy बिल्कुल नहीं है. It dissolves into water completely and turns into like this orange drink, which you can drink over the summers. इसमें ice mix करके पियो, and once you taste this, I believe me, you're going to be blown and you'd want to buy more and more of this. मेरे को already और खरीदने का मन कर रहा है because my bottle is going to end very soon. So I love this and I want to recommend this to you. Please get your hands on this on the 15th August sale. And another thing that I tried lately and I loved, although this is not related to a trek, is the protein dosa mix. And it's a premixed batter basically. So you mix this in water and then you cook dosa normally जैसे cook होता है over a tawa, and it turns into a really nice and crispy dosa, and you can eat it with either chutney or the dosa masala or even sambar, and it's going to be a nice meal. So these products are definitely something you should get your hands on. And these तो of course if you're going on a trek or even in general, अगर आपको ये products अपने lifestyle में incorporate करने हैं, please don't forget to catch the sale on the 15th of August and use my coupon code Tanya KH for an extra discount. And इन सब चीज़ों को ट्रैक में रखने के लिए finally the last item that you need is this bag. This is a trekking bag. And ये आप दिन में कैरी कर सकते हैं. You can even go for a smaller size. मेरे पास ये काफ़ी बड़ा सा 65 लीटर का बैग है. You can even go for a 50 liter bag in case you know that you're going to be opting in for a porter during your Everest Base Camp trek. If not, you can also use a bigger bag, much bigger bag, like a 70-liter bag, and carry all the items with you throughout the duration of the trek, which honestly I won't recommend too much because it's slightly difficult and challenging. But go for a bag which you think is appropriate for you. Now we come to the itinerary of the trek, and मैं यहाँ पे सारी जगहों के नाम mention करूँगी. Obviously you will get a better idea of what these places are and हर जगह पे क्या होगा, नज़ारे कैसे होंगे, altitude कैसे change होगा वगैरह वगैरह. But I will mention all the places over here with the height of those locations also. Also disclaimer, this is the trek itinerary that I followed for my trek because of the company that I was traveling with. But अगर आपको कोई और itinerary follow करनी है based off of some other itinerary recommendation on the internet, or because of some other company that you're going with, that is completely fine. So the first day you arrive in Kathmandu and you also spend the night over there. And second day you fly to a place called Lukla, जहाँ की flights आपको ideally advance में book कर लेनी चाहिए because they are very dicey and कई बार नहीं भी मिलती हैं flights, इसलिए advance में book कर लें अगर आप खुद की trip plan कर रहे हैं तो. So you arrive in Lukla and then you go to a place called Phakding the same day. And Lukla by the way is also one of the scariest airports to land at because वहाँ के का airport की जो elevation है और also जो runway है वो बहुत ही ज़्यादा छोटा है with the elevation. So it's also a very scary airport. More of that coming in the video, so please stay tuned. The next day after Phakding, you go to a place called Namche Bazaar, which is by far I think one of my favorite places to be at. Day 4th was acclimatization day at Namche Bazaar because after gaining a certain altitude you also have to spend a rest day ताकि आप acclimatize कर सकें. ये high altitudes में एक बहुत ही important activity होती है because if you don't rest and if you don't acclimatize you can get sick. And किसी trek को enjoy करने का ये मतलब तो नहीं है कि वहाँ जाके आपको आप बीमार पड़ जाएं and you can't complete the trek. If you're going on a trek you obviously want to enjoy it, so acclimatization is also very very important. After spending day 4 in acclimatization, day 5 you go to a place called Dibuchi. And Dibuchi is a one-day trek. You spend the night over there and next day immediately after Dibuchi you leave for a place called Dingbochi. After the 2 days of trekking, one day of Dingbochi is going to be a rest day, and once you get to Dingbochi you'll realize that that rest is so important and you absolutely needed it क्योंकि high altitude में trekking करने के बाद it gets extremely exhausting. After the rest day in Dingbochi, the next day is a trek day to Libuchi, and the next 2 days of the trek are generally on the more difficult side because one day of trek to Libuchi के बाद एक दिन वहाँ पे rest होगा सिर्फ, उसके बाद no acclimatization day, and the next day directly you leave for a place called Gorakshep. And Gorakshep से उसी दिन, as soon as you reach Gorakshep, the same day you reach Everest Base Camp also. So it's a very long day of trekking all the way to Gorakshep and then from there to Everest Base Camp. And after reaching Everest Base Camp and feeling extremely happy that you finally reached to the destination that you had signed up for, which is also very exhausting part of the trip क्योंकि आपको Everest Base Camp तक जाते जाते पता चलेगा कि हाई ऑल्टीट्यूड आप हाईएस्ट ऑल्टीट्यूड पे इस पूरे ट्रैक के पहुंच चुके हैं एंड दिस इज़ प्रॉबली वन ऑफ द लॉन्गेस्ट एंड मोस्ट एग्जॉस्टिंग डेज. बट आफ्टर एवरेस्ट बेस कैम्प झंडा गाड़ने के बाद, इन्जॉय करने के बाद, पिक्चर्स लेने के बाद, यू कम बैक टू गोरखशेप एंड यू स्पेंड द नाइट एट गोरखशेप. So the next day, at least in the itinerary that I was following or the company that I was traveling with was following, according to this itinerary, the next day after Everest Base Camp, you have an optional trek to Kala Pathar. और काला पत्थर की जो हाइट है इज़ एट 19,000 feet, विच इज़ इवन हायर देन एवरेस्ट बेस कैम्प का ऑल्टीट्यूड. So Kala Pathar is entirely optional and you have to wake up super early in the morning for doing that. You have to wake up and start off on the trek at 3 a.m. so that you reach the top of Kala Pathar by 5 a.m. and you can see the rising sun behind the whole Khumbu region and behind the Everest peak. And वो एक बहुत ही सुंदर साइट है, बट ऑब्वियसली इट्स ऑप्शनल, इंटायरली डिपेंड्स ऑन योर एंड्योरेंस. आई पर्सनली डिड इट एंड इट वाज द बेस्ट मोमेंट ऑफ माई लाइफ क्योंकि जब मैंने वो राइजिंग सन देखा इट वाज एब्सोल्युटली वर्थ इट. बट काला पत्थर का ट्रैक इज़ अ वेरी शॉर्ट वन एंड उसके बाद भी वापस आप जब गोरखशेप पहुँचेंगे ट्रैक करने के बाद, सनराइज़ देखने के बाद, you have to leave for the next destination. And the next destination is going, at least for our trek itinerary, was Ferichi. फेरीची हम लोग पहुँचे, वहाँ पे हमने एक बहुत अच्छा लंच खाया एंड देन वी स्टेड एट फेरीची फॉर द रेस्ट ऑफ द डे. आफ्टर फेरीची द नेक्स्ट डेस्टिनेशन वाज डेबूची क्योंकि आपको धीरे धीरे डिसेंड भी करना होता है इस पूरे ट्रैक पे. एंड इस ट्रैक के बारे में बात करते करते मुझे थकान हो रही है, ऑल्दो आई एम जस्ट टॉकिंग अबाउट द आइटनरी ऑफ द ट्रैक, बट देयर आर सो मेनी डेज एंड सो मेनी स्टेप्स इन्वॉल्व. बट आफ्टर डेबूची यू फाइनली रीच नामचे बाजार वेयर यू कैन almost celebrate officially the end of the trek क्योंकि नामचे बाजार के बाद the trek gets a little more easy and you trek all the way back from Namche Bazaar to Lukla. At least for my trek itinerary, that's what happened. We trekked all the way back. It was a very long descent day, but कर लिया, कि जैसे तैसे करके कर लिया ना. ऑल्सो आई वॉन्टेड टू गेट बैक टू लुकला एंड गेट बैक फाइनली आफ्टर सच अ लॉन्ग ट्रैक. इतनी लंबे ट्रैक करने के बाद आपको भी थकान होने लग जाती है ऑब्वियसली. सो यू आर ऑल्सो एक्साइटेड अबाउट गेटिंग बैक टू नॉर्मल सी एंड गेटिंग बैक टू लाइफ. सो लुकला से यू हैव टू टेक अ फ्लाइट बैक टू काठमांडू. बट लेट मी बी ऑनेस्ट, लुकला से कई बार फ्लाइट्स नहीं मिलती हैं बिकॉज द वेदर इज़ वेरी डाइसी ओवर देयर. एंड sometimes flights get cancelled, sometimes you don't get a flight at all. For me, I had to stay one extra day at Lukla because the weather was really bad and I couldn't get a flight back. But once you finally fly back, you come back to Kathmandu, and coming back to Kathmandu is a breath of fresh air. The whole world looks different to you. And once you get back to Kathmandu, you can fly back to your country, or if you're from Nepal, you can come back to your regular destination on the same day, or you can stay for one extra night in Kathmandu and just get the general vibe of the place. क्योंकि Kathmandu तो आपको इस पूरी ट्रैक की आइटनरी में अच्छे से देखने को मिलता ही नहीं है. For me personally, I stayed one extra night in Kathmandu, and the area that I was staying in was Thamel area, which is one of the best areas of Kathmandu for travelers especially. So you can book your accommodation accordingly, whether you want to come back on the same day or you want to stay in Kathmandu. So this was the complete itinerary that at least I followed. You can get multiple itineraries off of the internet, but if you're planning your trek yourself, this can be a good start point for you कि आपको कौन कौन सी जगहों पे रुकना है and accommodations कहाँ कहाँ पे book करने हैं. Next, in the course of this video, I am going to tell you of some of the things that you should keep in mind before planning this trip, and these are some extremely important tips that will probably save you both money, time and effort. So I've accumulated all the important pointers that I could find over here, or I could remember off the top of my head. अगर आपको भी कुछ pointers पता है, please mention them in the comment section below. And so far, if you're enjoying the video, please hit the like button because that is going to be really important for this video to reach more and more people. So first thing that you should do before you even get on this trek is please get travel insurance, and especially World Nomads की एक travel insurance आती है. I will link it below. And that travel insurance is also going to cover evacuation and helicopter evacuation if required, क्योंकि आप एक ट्रैक पे जा रहे हो जो high altitude है. So if required and if you fall sick and if it's absolutely essential, you should have travel insurance on you. And अगर आपको कोई incidental injury वगैरह भी हो जाती है तो उसका cost at least cover हो जाएगा. So travel insurance is going to be really important. The next thing that you should do is get a SIM card at the airport. So Ncell कंपनी का SIM card आता है, या तो आप एयरपोर्ट से ले लें या फिर थामिल की एरिया की, जिस एरिया में मैंने रेकमेंड किया था आपको रहना चाहिए, कि एरिया की मार्केट से ले लें. बट Ncell का SIM is going to be a pretty good utility for you to make calls and for also getting internet for as long as signal आएगा ट्रैक पे. although आगे जाके signal नहीं आएगा, and you will have to further pay for internet if required. Although on a trek I don't recommend that you should get internet, but in case you require it, वहाँ पे internet facility है. at least मेरे काम के लिए मुझे internet की ज़रूरत होती है क्योंकि मुझे emails देखने होते हैं, काम करना होता है. Even though I'm traveling and my work involves travel vlogging, I do have a lot of work that is ongoing even while traveling. So I had to get on a very important call during my trek for at least 2 hours on 2 days of the trek. So 2 different days of the trek. So internet for me is a very important utility. So internet मुझे तो खरीदना पड़ा आगे जाके, but SIM card रख लो, काम आएगा. So once you get started on the trek, one thing you should keep in mind is that do not climb more than 400 to 500 meters in a single day, because that can make you prone to AMS, which is acute mountain sickness. So if you don't want to fall sick, please make sure that you do not climb more than this amount if you're going without a guide. Although I would recommend that you get a guide and a porter both for ease of trekking, although that will increase the cost of the trek. But I would say that it's still better if you go with a guide. But although the itinerary that I've already mentioned before is according to these standards, so you're going to be sorted if you're following that itinerary. Besides that, also you should have a rest day after every 600 to 900 meters. Like I'd mentioned in the itinerary also, there were a few days in between which are rest days. So you need to rest on those days so that you can acclimatize and again don't get prone to AMS. All the places where you stay at, so all the places that you finally reach, वहाँ पे रहने के proper accommodations होते हैं, which are lodges. You don't have any concept of staying in tents during this trek. I think अगर कोई लोग tents में रहते भी होंगे तो it's probably rare because it's quite cold and the weather conditions are very extreme. So more often than not, you stay at these lodges at all of these different places, and these lodges have really good facilities. They have internet facilities, they have hot water facility. You can practically bathe in some of these lodges, although after a certain altitude you will also have to pay for bathing, and I would say it's probably going to be a little difficult also for you to get out of the comfort of your warm clothes and bathe, but at least for the beginning 5-6 days you will be able to bathe also. And if you haven't booked out these places in advance on the internet, you can also request the person who is at a particular lodge at a certain height to book a place for you at the next destination, because they have a way of coordinating with each other. So in case your itinerary is very flexible and if you haven't planned out too much in advance, you can also get on a kind of a trip जहाँ पे आप एक लॉज में पहुँचने के बाद नेक्स्ट लॉज ओनर को बता सकते हैं कि मैं आने वाला हूँ या आने वाली हूँ. So उसके accordingly the next place is going to get booked out for you in advance. So when it comes to the food on this trek, more often than not I think दाल भात is the best option, क्योंकि उसमें बहुत फिलिंग कार्ब्स होते हैं. एंड इस ट्रैक में क्योंकि आप एक दिन में बहुत ज़्यादा चल रहे हैं, आपको कार्ब लोडिंग करनी होती है एंड यू हैव टू ईट अ लॉट ऑफ फूड सो दैट यू स्टे फुल एंड ऑल्सो यू डोंट फॉल सिक. सो आपको एटलीस्ट एक पूरा फुल मील लंच का और एक फुल मील डिनर का खाना चाहिए बिसाइड्स ब्रेकफास्ट. दिस इज ऑब्वियसली गोइंग टू ऐड टू द कॉस्ट ऑफ द ट्रैक, बट प्लीज डोंट चीप आउट ऑन द फूड दैट यू ईट एंड यूल हैव टू ईट रियली गुड न्यूट्रिशियस फूड. सो दाल भात इज मोस्टली द बेस्ट ऑप्शन, बट मोस्ट लॉजेस ऑल्सो हैव अदर वराइटीज ऑफ फूड, जैसे कि पास्ता, गुड लोडेड चीज़ पिज़्ज़ाज. These are going to be more expensive, but you will have the option of this kind of food also, which completely blows my mind that even on such high altitudes these kind of things are available, because वहाँ पे बहुत painstakingly जो lodge owners होते हैं वो या तो porters से या फिर helicopter से, if they can afford it, they get all these ingredients and stock it up so that you can eat this kind of food also. So they will have a large variety of the food that is available to you. But if I'm being completely honest, I think the quality of food is probably the best till Namche Bazaar. After that, even though the meals will be pretty heavy, you will get a lot of other options also. After Namche Bazaar, the food may not be the best quality or the best tasting, but please make do with it and understand that it's a high altitude trek and don't have too many expectations of the taste of the food at least. Like I've already mentioned before, you should be drinking at least 2 liters of water per day minimum to not fall sick again. Along with water, take administered courses of Diamox also. Diamox एक medicine होती है जो आपको high altitude sickness से save करती है. And Diamox is available even off the counters at most medicine shops. But how much you should be eating is something that you can consult a doctor. I was taking half a tablet of Diamox in the morning and half a tablet in the evening. And this was administered to me by the trek coordinator only who was with us, because he had already done a course in medicine, in sports medicine, and also a course in trekking and hiking in general. So he was basically making sure that we took that amount of Diamox, and he started administering the Diamox to us after Namche Bazaar. Sleeping bags are extremely important. You should have a sleeping bag on you, because even though you're staying at lodges which have beds and linen available to you and you have rooms and 4 walls that are completely covering you, हाई ऑल्टीट्यूड पे जैसे जैसे टेम्परेचर कम होता जाएगा आपको बहुत ठंड लगेगी. एंड बियॉन्ड अ पॉइंट यू विल डेफिनेटली नीड अ स्लीपिंग बैग विच कैन सेव यू फ्रॉम दैट kind of cold temperatures. So having a sleeping bag on you is absolutely important. And if you don't want to buy a sleeping bag, you can also rent it out from Kathmandu itself. Avoid drinking alcohol and smoking at all costs while you're climbing on the trek. आपको नामचे बाज़ार वगैरह में बहुत सारे pubs मिलेंगे, but please don't indulge yourself, because when you're climbing your body is anyway losing a lot of water and you need to retain as much water in your body as is possible, and alcohol is generally dehydrating. So please refrain from consuming alcohol, even if it's at night or even if it's on your rest days. Do not consume it, and also refrain from smoking if possible. Besides this, you will also have the option of eating non-veg food on this trek, because all the lodge owners will have those items on the menu at least. But I would still say that please avoid eating non-veg food also, because the quality of the non-veg food is not something that you can 100% be assured of. Lodge owners रखते तो हैं, but please bear in mind that all of this food is transported from Kathmandu all the way to those higher altitudes on porters, on horsebacks. And the time that it takes to get shipped all the way from Kathmandu to these locations can be quite a lot. Please read up on AMS, mountain sickness, altitude sickness in general before your trek, and do not take any symptoms lightly. If you do feel sick, consult a physician, consult your trek coordinator. Trek coordinators are mostly equipped with a lot of knowledge to be able to help you. So don't take any symptoms lightly. But हाँ, ये बात तो है कि a little bit of breathlessness here and there is normal. आपको breathlessness हर higher altitude पे feel होगी. जैसे ही मैं नामचे बाज़ार पहली बार पहुंची थी, I was feeling breathlessness even at that point of time. So it's quite normal to experience breathlessness, especially when you're climbing stairs after a trek day, or if you're roaming around in your lodge also after a trek day. आपको breathlessness थोड़ी बहुत feel होगी as soon as you complete 10,000 feet and above. So it's okay, but don't take any symptom of at least mountain sickness very lightly. So these are all the pointers that I could think of off the top of my head. But in case you guys have more recommendations, mention them in the comments, and also please like this video if you haven't already. But with this, I'm going to mention frequently asked questions that at least I saw a lot of over the internet. And the first question that I saw very repetitively being asked on the internet is the trek hard? So if I'm being honest, it's not very hard. ऐसा नहीं है कि you have to be like an athlete or a marathoner or you have to be really fit to be able to do it. But it is slightly challenging at least. It's not super easy, but it's not super hard either. It's doable, but make sure that you can run at least 5 kilometers before getting on the trek, and you do basic leg exercises at least, because your hamstrings, your glutes and your quads are going to get used very excessively throughout the course, and you're walking continuously for days together. The next question that is asked often is it expensive? If I'm being honest, yes, it's expensive, and also there's a lot of incremental and hidden costs that you will probably not realize. जैसे कि the tips that you give to people, or the tips that you will have to give to people. Apart from that, all the charging situation, जैसे आपको कैमरा बैटरी चार्ज करनी है, you have to charge your phone, anything, you will have to pay incremental costs for that also. Incremental costs of food, of lodgings, plus these charges will only keep increasing with the duration of the trek. And also you have to carry cash with you at all times, because there's no fixed cost of anything, and कहीं पे भी ATM तो नहीं है, so you have to withdraw cash at Kathmandu or Lukla, and you have to make sure that you have a lot of cash on you, at least 35,000 NPR if I'm being honest. इतना तो आपके पास minimum होना ही चाहिए. And at all places you will have to pay in cash, and कहीं आपको ट्रैक में cash नहीं मिलेगा, so you have to make sure you have that kind of money on you. And yes, the trek is expensive. Even मेरे को बहुत ही ज़्यादा अजीब लगा था इतना ज़्यादा ट्रैक फ़ी पे करने के बाद भी फ़्लाइट का कॉस्ट पे करने के लिए, और फिर ऊपर से जितने भी और कॉस्ट पे करने थे, मुझे बहुत ज़्यादा ट्रैक पे रियलाइज़ हुआ कि जितना मैंने सोचा था उससे तो ज़्यादा ही एक्सपेंसिव है. एंड वट एवर यू एस्टिमेट, इट्स डेफिनेटली गोइंग टू बी ओवर एंड अबव दैट. सो इट इज़ एन एक्सपेंसिव ट्रैक, सो बी मेंटली प्रिपेयर्ड फॉर दैट. नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज दैट हाउ कैन यू मेक बुकिंग्स इन एडवांस? अगर आप किसी ट्रैवल कंपनी के साथ ट्रैवल कर रहे हो तब तो एवरीथिंग इज सॉर्टेड, बट इफ़ यू वांट टू मेक बुकिंग्स इन एडवांस, यू कैन टॉक टू guides, you can talk to porters, try and make as many arrangements in Kathmandu itself, because you will have some difficulty that you will face once you get on the trek. So whether it's your equipment, whether it's your guide, porter, everything, Kathmandu में आपको सब कुछ मिल जाएगा, सारी information मिल जाएगी more often than not. In fact, even booking at different places will be available. You will have an option for it in Kathmandu itself. But अगर आपको ट्रैक में कहीं पे भी difficulty face होती है, you can ask the receptionist at the lodge owners of how you can manage further, where you can stay at the next destination, and more often than not, you will find a solution. And the last question is that what do you eat on the trek? Like I've already mentioned before, you'll get lots of options of what you can eat. You should also carry bars like these with you so that you can eat it during the trek. And anywhere when you feel hungry, you can stop for lunch, because there are quite a lot of places that serve lunch, that serve dinner. But ये बात है कि आपको डिनर सिर्फ उसी जगह पे खाना होता है जहाँ पे आप रह रहे हो. That is the only compulsion. But apart from that, lunch आप कहीं पे भी खा सकते हो रास्ते में, and breakfast also is going to be served at the lodge itself. The meal portions are large, the variety is large, so food is not a problem, but I would still recommend stay away from non-veg food and alcohol if you can. So those were all the questions that I found off of the internet that I could cover, and I think this is a pretty exhaustive video for everybody who's planning to go on this trek. So अगर आपको कोई पता है जिसको इस ट्रैक पे जाना है, do share this video with them, because it took me literally 2 hours to record this video. Honestly, it's super long, but I hope this video answered all of your questions. If not, hit me a comment and let me know in the comment section below. We'll have a discussion over there, and maybe even other people will be able to answer your questions. But with this, I'm going to end this super long video. Please make sure that you subscribe to this channel for the upcoming series based on Everest Base Camp trek, जिसमें मैं पिछले साल गई थी. I have all the beautiful views, all the beautiful places lined up for you, so make sure that you subscribe to this channel. And also I have a new channel coming up which is called Living with Tanya. Please subscribe to that channel as well. And with this, I'll see you next time on another video, hopefully from Everest Base Camp Trek series. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.